Tell that ungrateful daughter of mine to fix this mess right now." I didn't even have my phone to my ear yet, and I could already hear my mom shouting in the background. It was her friend Diane who had called me, sounding flustered. "Lena," she said quickly, lowering her voice, "your parents and siblings are outside Harvest Table. They're saying their Thanksgiving reservation was canceled, and they're demanding to speak to the manager." I slowly leaned back in my chair and looked through the glass wall of my office. Below me, the dining room shimmered under warm golden lights. Every table was set perfectly, crystal glasses polished, centerpieces aligned, staff moving like clockwork. Thanksgiving dinner service would begin in less than 2 hours. I allowed myself a small smile. "Which daughter is she talking about?" I asked calmly. "The one who wasn't invited this year?" Diane went quiet. What my mother didn't know was simple. I hadn't asked someone to cancel her reservation. I was the one who canceled it, because Harvest Table wasn't just the restaurant they had chosen to celebrate successful family members. It was my restaurant. My name is Lena Carter. I'm 29 years old, and for most of my life, I was the family disappointment. My older brother Ethan is a corporate attorney. My younger sister Maya works in tech and posts photos from conferences and business class flights. At every holiday gathering, my parents introduce them with glowing pride. "And Lena," my mom would say with a tight smile, "she's figuring things out." Figuring things out. That's what they called it when I dropped out of medical school. I lasted almost 2 years before I admitted the truth to myself. I didn't want to be a doctor. I didn't want a prestigious title. I didn't want to spend my life chasing something that looked impressive but felt empty. The only place I felt alive was in the kitchen. I loved the rhythm of it, the timing, the creativity, the way flavors could tell a story. Cooking made me feel purposeful in a way anatomy lectures never did. When I told my parents I was leaving med school to start a catering business, my mom cried. My dad asked me if I'd lost my mind. At Thanksgiving that year, my uncle laughed and said, "So when do we get to try your little hobby?" Little hobby. I smiled politely and passed the potatoes. What none of them saw were the 16-hour days that followed. I bought a used food truck with my savings and a terrifying small business loan. I worked festivals, office parks, anywhere that would let me park. I prepped ingredients at 5 a.m. and cleaned grease traps at midnight. I burned myself more times than I could count. I didn't quit. The lines grew longer. Customers came back. Food bloggers wrote about the rosemary braised short ribs and lemon thyme chicken I served from that truck. 2 years later, I paid off the loan and leased a struggling downtown restaurant space that had failed twice before. Everyone told me it was a bad idea. I signed the papers anyway. Harvest Table opened with 12 tables and a staff of 8. I designed the interior myself. Warm wood, soft lighting, simple elegance. The menu focused on seasonal comfort food elevated just enough to feel special. The first year was brutal. The second year was stable. By year 3, reservations were booked weeks in advance. But I didn't stop there. I opened a second location in the next city, then a third. I formed Carter Hospitality Group and expanded quietly. No flashy social media announcements, no dramatic press releases sent to my family group chat, because they never asked. They assumed I was still trying things. 3 weeks before Thanksgiving, my mom texted me. "We've decided to keep Thanksgiving small this year, immediate family only. We made reservations at Harvest Table." I read it twice. Immediate family. Before I could respond, another message popped up. "It's quite upscale. We thought it might not be your kind of place." I stared at my phone, stunned by the irony. Not my kind of place. Later that day, my brother called. "Mom didn't mean to hurt you," he said casually. "She just wants to celebrate success this year." "Success?" I repeated. "You know, careers that are stable, accomplishments we can be proud of." Then he added, almost as an afterthought, "Actually, since you work in food service, maybe you could pick up a shift there on Thanksgiving. That way you'd still be around." I let the silence stretch. "Pick up a shift?" I asked carefully. Yeah, he said, might be good for you to see how a high-end restaurant runs. At my own restaurant. That was the moment something shifted inside me. It wasn't rage, it was clarity. For years, I had tried to earn their approval quietly. I thought if I worked hard enough, they'd notice. If I built something impressive enough, they'd finally respect me. But they had already decided who I was. So on Thanksgiving morning, I made one call. Cancel the Johnson party reservation for tonight, I told my operations director. He didn't ask questions. He simply said, done. 20 minutes later, my phone rang. My mom didn't even wait for a greeting. What did you do? She demanded. They're saying the owner personally removed our reservation. This is humiliating. I didn't do anything wrong, I said evenly. I decided who dines at my restaurant. There was a pause. What are you talking about? I own Harvest Table, Mom, and 8 other restaurants. I've owned this one for 5 years. Silence flooded the line. That's impossible, she whispered. It's public record, I replied. You never asked what I was building. You just assumed it wasn't good enough. An hour later, they arrived in person. I met them at the entrance wearing a navy business suit instead of a chef's jacket. My staff stood respectfully nearby. My brother avoided my eyes. My sister looked stunned. My dad looked confused. My mom looked pale. You own this? She asked quietly. Yes. My dad stepped forward. Lena, let's not make this dramatic. We can still have dinner. You said Thanksgiving was for successful family members, I replied calmly. That's not what we meant, my mom said quickly. It's exactly what you meant, I said. For years, you measured success by titles you understood. You never tried to understand mine. People on the sidewalk have started watching. I kept my voice steady. I won't tolerate disrespect at my business. If you'd like to dine here in the future, you can request a reservation like anyone else. Tonight, we're fully booked. For the first time in my life, they had nothing to say. They left. Thanksgiving service that night was flawless. Every table was full. Guests laughed, toasted, complimented the food. I walked the dining room floor with pride, not because my family finally knew, but because I built something real with my own hands. Later that night, my brother texted, I'm sorry, I had no idea. My sister followed with, you should have told us. But I shouldn't have to. Respect doesn't require a reveal. Over the next few weeks, my mom called again. Her voice was softer. She asked questions about the business, real ones. For the first time, she listened instead of correcting me. Some things can't be undone, but something inside me changed that day. I stopped chasing approval from people who only valued me when I fit their expectations. I stopped shrinking my accomplishments to make them comfortable. I stopped apologizing for choosing a path they didn't understand. Success isn't always loud. Sometimes it's built quietly while others assume you're failing. And sometimes the people who exclude you from the table discover you own the place. If you've ever been underestimated by your own family, remember this. Your worth doesn't depend on their understanding. Keep building. Keep growing. One day, they may finally see it. And if they don't, build anyway.